Okay, for tonight's homework, I'm going to have you write all of this work, all the tables, all the graphs, and I'm going to have you write the 4 key words that let me know that you watched this. So again, write everything, all the numbers, all the tables, all the graphs, and the 4 words. All right, what we're doing is finding a solution point to a system of equations, which means more than one equation, 2 of them, this blue one and this black one. The first way is when we have a table already filled out for you. I want you to be able to identify the point that they share in common exactly the same. I want you to write that as a coordinate, which is always x comma y, but we don't have y anymore. We use f of x to be y, so that really is like x and y. But be careful, this point, you don't want to write this 4, 2. This is the coordinate 2 for x and 4 for f of x. The first word is blue. Blue. So again, make sure you put the numbers in the right place. So here I go. I'm putting that 2 where the x is and 4 where f of x is. When I'm doing a check, I'm going to take both those equations and plug in 2 for x and 4 for y or f of x. So there's my first one, 3x minus 2. There's my second equation, f of x equals x plus 2. I'm taking that and plugging in a 4 for f of x and a 2 for x. So again, 2 is going to go right here where my x's used to be. My 4 is going to go right in there where that whole f of x chunk is, just going to be written a plain old 4. So when I do this, a 4 replaces that f of x. I still have my equal, I still have my 3, and that x right there is replaced with 2. Still have my minus 2. So this should be a true statement. 4 should equal 3 times 2, 6, minus 2. 4 equals 4. That is a true statement. The second one, 4 for f of x, 2 for x, gives me 4 equals 2 plus 2, which is 4 equals 4. Another true statement. That shows that that point worked for both 2 separate equations. That point was a solution to these systems. All right, next problem. This one has you get the point from the graph. And remember, and we're going to have to review how to graph. This 3x minus 1 starts at negative 1 on the y-axis, and then the number in front of x is my rise and run, my slope. So I could put this 3 over 1, which means from negative 1 over 1 up 3 over 1 up 3. I need to remember how to graph. This one has a y-intercept of 5. Put my first point on the 5. And then the number in front of this x is 1. And as a fraction would be 1 over 1, which means from here, over 1 up 1, over 1 up 1. But for this one, the graphs are already there. I want you to give me this coordinate written correctly again. So this coordinate, which is always x comma y, but not y anymore, x comma f of x. I look at that graph and I can see that's the point 3 over 3 for x, and then up 8 for what used to be y, but now is f of x, over 3 up 8. That is that point right there. To do the check, I take those 2 equations, f of x equals 3x minus 1, be careful not to change it, and f of x equals x plus 5. I'm going to replace 8 into the f of x, and I'm going to leave this 3 alone, but where x is, I'm going to put this 3. And then minus that 1. This gives me 8 equals 9 minus 1 equals 8 equals 8. That is a true statement. Over here, plug in 8 for f of x and 1 for x. I'm sorry, 3 for x. Gives me 8 equals 3 plus 5. Another true statement. It showed this point, 3, 8, satisfied both these equations, this system of equations. The second word is dog. Dog. All right, the last problem which is harder, has you graph it yourself. So I'm going to have you practice graphing these functions using quick slope intercept form, which means when I'm graphing them, find your very first point. So when I solve this system by graphing, I want to know where I put that very first point. That very first point goes right on the what used to be the y-axis but is the f of x axis now, because that is your f of x axis intercept. So that -2, I put my first dot right on -2, right on that up or down line. And then from there, I look at the number in front of x, which is how much it's changing each time, its rate of change. If I want to make that into a fraction showing rise and run, I just put that whole number over 1. And what that tells me is from my starting point of -2, my slope or my rate of change or my common difference is adding 3 each time. So from there, I'm going to go over 1, up 3, over 1, up 3. From this point, right 1, up 3 will give me 3 more in the y column. Right 1, up 3, right 1, up 3, right 1, up 3. Be able to stair step the other way. Down 3, left 1, down 3, left 1. Stair step both ways. Right 1, up 3, right 1, up 3, or down 3, left 1, down 3, left 1, down 3, left 1, down 3, left 1, with a y-intercept of -2, or f of x intercept. I want you to draw your line through them and label that line. That line is f of x equals 3x minus 2. Label that black line so I know which it is, because you're doing more than one line on this graph. Label them. All right, the next one, do the same thing. Find your starting point. The plain number by itself is always the starting point to tell you where to put your first point on this f of x axis. So go up to 2 on the f of x axis, and then from there, now look at the number in front of x, which is your slope. There's no number there, so put a number there, 1. And then, of course, you need a rise and run for your slope. So put that 1 over 1 to make it have a rise and run. You could put any number over 1, which means from my starting point 2, every time I go right a box, I go up a box. Right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1. Be able to stair step the other way. Down, left, stair step other way. Draw your line through those. Again, since there's more than one line on this graph, label it. This is f of x equals x plus 2, or 1x plus 2 if you want to write it. And for this, I'm having you solve it. So solve it, I'm ready to go. All I got to do is list what this coordinate is. I'm not having you check it. You could if you wanted to, but I'm having you solve this. I don't say solve and check. So solving it means just giving me the point where they come together written as a coordinate. That solution point is right 2 for x, up 4 for y, or f of x, which represents y now. That is that point 2, 4. That is the solution point. If I say solve it, you're done right there. The third word is big. Big. So again, if you were solving it, you're done. But if I was having you check it, then you would have to take that 2 and plug it in for x and that 4 for f of x to check it like those other two problems. But this is solve it only. You're going to have to graph it, which is tough. The fourth word is house. House. So hopefully, again, you solve this by graphing yourself. Hopefully on the other two, you found the point by either looking at a graph. Let's see, this one right here, you found the point by looking at a graph. And then the last one, you found a point by just looking at the table. All right, good luck. Show me this work, and you'll be done with this station.